This video is meant for those who've already seen the show, and I'd highly recommend you do so before watching, but if you'd prefer to start here, I'll give a brief synopsis. Demon Slayer is a story about a boy named Tanjiro Kamado, whose family are all slaughtered by a demon named Muzan Kibutsuji, save for his sister, Nezuko, who is turned into a man-eating demon. Tanjiro then learns how to fight demons and joins the Demon Slayer Corps in order to avenge his family and hopefully find a way to turn Nezuko back into a human. Now, when I watched the first season of Demon Slayer, I honestly wasn't all that into it. Now, don't get me wrong, I did enjoy the show. The animation by Ufotable is incredible as always. The music by Yuki Kajira and Goshina sounds amazing, and the characters are fun and diverse. But with all the hype surrounding it and people calling it one of the best shonen anime of all time, I had my expectations set so high that the show didn't really have a chance of meeting them. I could understand why people felt that way, it just didn't resonate with me as strongly. It's been a few years, but I think the biggest disconnect for me at the time was the pacing. Demon Slayer tends to take things pretty fast, at least from the viewer's perspective. For example, at the very beginning, the show speeds through 2 years of training so as to not bore the viewer, while still giving Tanjiro a reasonable length of time to become good with a sword. This comes at a cost, however, as it also means we don't get to see most of our characters' struggles and growth as it happens. We get to see the fruits of their labor, but it doesn't feel as triumphant or satisfying because we didn't get to go on much of that journey with them. It also means there's very little downtime between conflicts for the characters to simply talk with one another and form connections that feel believable, which would in turn endear them more to the audience. Inosuke and Zenitsu suffer from this the most, as they're only introduced about halfway into the season, so the most we get from them is Inosuke is wild, crazy, and a loner, and Zenitsu is obsessed with women and is a scaredy cat, but can be cool while unconscious. I also felt apprehensive going into the next arc of the story because it would have a strong focus on the Flame Hashira, Kyojuro Rengoku. From the moment he was introduced in Season 1, I really didn't like him. His design and appearance seemed absolutely ridiculous. He almost always had a smile on his face, and the tone he spoke with was mostly, if not entirely, the same regardless of what he was saying.
Although I respect you with all my heart, Master, I cannot abide by this. I'm fully against it. But consider that this boy, soon after joining, encountered a 12 Kizuki. I think he can draw them out. Even we rarely get the chance to confront one.
This gave me the impression that he was a very one-note character with no real depth. And on top of that, he actually wants to have both Tanjiro and Nezuko executed upon first meeting them.
Protecting a demon is a clear violation. We can deal with this on our own. We shall execute them both.
In his defense, Rengoku's distrust is totally understandable given the Corps' history with demons. And after witnessing Tanjiro's resolve and seeing that his faith in Nezuko wasn't baseless, his opinion of him does improve. Still, his first impression certainly left a bad taste in my mouth. Going into the film, I was expecting, heck, even wanting to hate him. I really didn't think I was going to enjoy the movie that much. But once I finally watched it, I came out of the theater a full-fledged fan of Demon Slayer, and with Kyojuro being not just my favorite character in the show, but one of my favorite characters in all of fiction. The film did an absolutely phenomenal job of elevating the characters and the stakes, and with one of the best film scores I've ever heard, Mugen Train improved pretty much every aspect of the show. As a matter of fact, I'll be using the score as the primary guide for this video, since I haven't heard anyone really analyze just how incredible and vital it is to this film. I'll still be analyzing every aspect of the film, so don't worry about that. Now, before I get into the movie proper, I feel it's important for me to explain the most important part of Demon Slayer's score. Its leitmotifs. A leitmotif is a musical theme used to represent a person, place, a narrative theme, or even sometimes an object. It's one of the most powerful musical techniques a composer can use, as it enables a director to attach a lot of emotions and memories about something to that piece. So whenever that music, or even just the melody of a piece plays, whether you're aware of it or not, those memories and emotions come rushing to the surface almost instantly, significantly enhancing the weight and strength of a scene. A great example of this would be Tanjiro's theme. It's a piece that we hear several times throughout the first season, allowing the music to accrue more and more meaning and emotion each time it's used. And when we finally hear the full lyrical version in the battle against Rui, it adds so much emotional weight that it takes the scene from being great to outstanding.
Hinokami Kagura! Dance!
Yuki Kajira and Goshina use leitmotifs to a degree of mastery that I've rarely heard in any other show or film to date. If not for their efforts, I don't think I would enjoy the show even half as much. And that's why I've chosen it as the guide for this analysis. To help things flow more smoothly, I want to show you the leitmotifs that were established in Season 1 that will be utilized in the film now, so I don't have to take a break in the middle to explain who or what it relates to. I'll also use a symbol at the bottom of the screen throughout the video to indicate who a theme refers to so that I don't always have to verbally indicate it. First up is the one I've already mentioned, Tanjiro's theme. Of course, we can't forget his sister Nezuko. Next we have Zenitsu's theme. Now for Inosuke. Then we have the theme of our main antagonist, Muzan. There's the theme of the Demon Slayer Corps. And finally, the theme that might even be more recognizable than Tanjiro's, the Demon's theme. Alright, with that out of the way, we can finally move on to talking about the movie proper. Right out of the gate, we need to talk about the art of this film. It's absolutely gorgeous! And it's not just the art. The swaying of the branches and the way the sunlight peeks through the leaves is so incredibly lifelike. No joke, in the theater, I thought I was looking at real-life footage and wasn't sure if I was watching the right movie or not. This was almost to the film's detriment, since I got whiplash when the more obviously animated characters finally appeared, but once I adjusted, they blend together marvelously. While we're taking in the gorgeous scenery, we can hear Master Ubuyashiki listing the names of several fallen demon slayers.
Yaichi, Toyoaki, Isao, Ryosuke, Yukio, Takahiro.
Once you get to see how many graves there are, it's a very sobering moment that puts into perspective just how many they've lost. And the fact that he seems to remember most, if not all of the names on these graves, shows just how much he cares for each member of the Corps. You really believe him when he refers to them as his children. It's no wonder why the Hashira respect him so much. But this also makes his words about his inevitable passing more ominous, as it's very clear that he serves as a source of motivation and support for the rest of the Corps.
I wonder for how much longer I'll be able to make the journey here.
As a matter of fact, the author Koyoharu Gotoge uses the kanji in his name to further exemplify this. Kagaya Ubuyashiki. In his first name, Kaga translates to shine, with the following ya meaning how. For his last name, Ubu means bear or to give birth to. Ya, but with a different kanji, means house or shop, and shiki means spread. Altogether, his name gives the idea that he is a man who shines brightly, sheltering others and giving birth to something of importance and spreading it. In this case, that would be nurturing the Demon Slayer Corps so that they may have the strength and will to fight against Muzan. Koyoharu does this a lot with the characters' names, so expect this to happen throughout the video.
No matter how many lives the demons snuff out, what they can never extinguish are the bright embers of a human spirit. No matter how often we're beaten down, in the end, we will rise up to fight again.
We then see the opening credits and are treated to our first piece of music in the film. Now, the actual official release of the OST doesn't provide any track names, so for this video, I went with the names from Lunachu's uploads, which have all been privated. While they did divide up some of the music a little differently from the label tracks, I personally like the names they came up with the most, so that's what I'll be going with. The first piece is titled Boarding the Infinite Train, and its most interesting element is the use of motifs from the song Homura, the main theme for the movie used in the trailers. At this point, what Homura is about or represents is unclear, so its use here is important in beginning to establish its meaning. While it's indeed a very beautiful piece, it also feels haunting to me, as if the music is warning of things to come. Beyond its narrative meaning, if you listen to the track on its own, you can hear the sound of a train moving. It wasn't necessary since the sound effects could be added in post, but I really appreciate the composers going the extra mile to generate these sounds through music in order to better connect the piece to the scene taking place. Stepping away from the music for a bit, we see our three heroes making their appearance, and it does a great job of establishing their personalities in just a few seconds. Tanjiro is calm and composed, Inosuke is rash and out of touch with modern society, thinking the train is some sort of beast, and Zenitsu is very timid and easily upset. While this movie definitely shouldn't be viewed without having seen the first season, a new viewer will at least be able to understand who these characters are from the get-go.
This Rengoku. He's a Hashira, right? You sure you'll recognize him?
I'll tell you when I sense him.
Tasty!
The camera pans out to another beautiful landscape shot before showing the title card. And now, the story is ready to begin.
Tasty! 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 Tasty!
This first scene with Kyojuro is incredibly silly, both in its music and visuals, which shows how silly and lighthearted he can be. It also serves as a nice bit of levity before things start to get a bit more serious. However, there is an additional meaning behind Kyojuro's words. In the Japanese version, he says umai, which is an exclamation of satisfaction just like in the English version. But an aspect that you may not know is that samurai would often finish every meal with these words to express thanks, because they could be their last. So while this scene is primarily comedic, the author is also showing that Kyojuro savors every single bite of his food as if it could literally be his last. A tad dark, but his positive attitude shows that he's not being morbid, and is instead extremely thankful for even the simplest of pleasures. It's a nice early look into the way he approaches life, which will be explored more as the film progresses. I also love how fluid his head raise is here. When a studio has the time and money to make something this simple, this well animated, you know you're in for something special. When introducing themselves to Kyojuro, he brings up Nezuko.
Also, isn't there one in that box?
Right. My sister, Nezuko.
Yes, I remember that demon. Since the Master accepted her, I will keep my peace.
He respects the Master enough to accept his decision, but it's clear he still isn't fully on board with the demon being part of the Demon Slayer Corps.
Incredible! I'm actually inside this titan!
Inosuke is voiced by Bryce Papenbrook, who also voices Eren Yeager in Attack on Titan. Maybe this is just a coincidence, but I like to think Funimation snuck an AOT reference in there.
And what brings the three of you here? A mission?
Tanjiro starts to converse with Rengoku, and already there's a massive improvement in his vocal delivery. Despite still maintaining a constant smile, the variance of tone in his voice shows more emotional complexity and thought than what was shown in Season 1. This scene in particular is great, because despite clearly having a comedic tone to it, Rengoku's responses to Tanjiro are genuine. He actually cares about what he's saying and isn't just giving him lip service.
He was a frail man,
Was he now?
and yet he could perform a Kagura dance in freezing weather.
Well, good for him.
And then,
On top of this, I also feel like he looks better too. Maybe more care was put into drawing him, or perhaps his naturally bright color palette works better in a darker environment such as this. Either way, he doesn't look silly or dumb to me anymore. All of this combined, I'm really starting to warm up to Kyojiro's character, and he hasn't been on screen for more than a couple of minutes. Back to the music, as Tanjiro starts to tell Kyojiro about the Hinokami Kagura, his theme starts to play.
Hinokami Kagura. The dance. I found myself doing it, just like my father used to. I was hoping if you knew anything about that dance, you'd be willing to tell me.
It's a good example of how effective a leitmotif is. Because his theme is inextricably linked with that scene now, playing the melody helps to enhance this moment by recalling even more emotions than the visuals would be able to do on their own. Though he doesn't know anything about it, hearing about his skill with adapting the dance for battle leads him to offer Tanjiro a position as his Suguko, or successor in English, which is an apprentice and eventual successor to a Hashira, showing he has come to accept Tanjiro quite a bit, despite his misgivings about Nezuko. We then enter a segment where Kyojiro explains some of the fundamentals of the breathing techniques.
Flame, water, wind, stone, and thunder. The breathing fundamentals. All other techniques branched off from those five, like how mist is a branch of wind.
While this would normally come off as inorganic exposition that was just thrown in to dump some lore on the audience, there's actually a reason for him saying this here. He just finished telling Tanjiro that he's never heard of the Hinokami Kagura before and that it's not a flame-breathing technique. By bringing up how other techniques were derived from the main five, he's essentially telling him that his technique could be a derivation. So it's less of a lore dump and more Kyojiro trying to help guide Tanjiro on where he should look next to learn more about the dance. He then asks Tanjiro about the color of his sword, although he gets his last name wrong despite hearing it just a minute ago, which could show that he doesn't fully respect him just yet.
Mizoguchi, what color is your sword?
Huh?
This is likely a reference to the Mizoguchi Kamado Shrine in Chikugo City. The similarity in name can explain why that would come to Kyojiro's mind first. Many fans also consider the shrine to be a source of inspiration for the story, given the multiple shared elements between the two, so it's possible this is the author paying homage to it. Back to the film, Kyojiro has this to say about Tanjiro's sword.
How unfortunate!
Why do you say that?
I've yet to see one with a black sword become a Hashira. Also, I hear they have no idea what style to master.
Tanjiro's face here gives me the impression that he sees a truth in Kyojiro's words, and that he doesn't feel like water breathing truly fits him. Perhaps it's foreshadowing that demon slayers with black blades are a jack-of-all-trades type that utilize many forms but master none, or perhaps that the Hinokami Kagura is the form best suited to him. It's hard to tell at this point, but it's worth keeping in mind for the future. Despite everything he just said, Kyojiro still believes he could train him to be a Hashira, though it's unclear if it's because he believes Tanjiro has a talent for it, or because he believes his skills as a teacher are just that great. Perhaps it's a mix of both, but we still don't know enough about him to say for sure. As he declares this, you can hear a trumpet rendition of the melody of Rengoku's theme. However, it still hasn't been established yet, so it's easy to miss on your first viewing. The final thing this scene reveals is that flame and water breathing have always had a Hashira. On a meta level, this gives the idea that Rengoku is one of the strongest Hashira in the core, setting an expectation of things to come. One fourth wall joke and a floppy Inosuke later, we get the first instance of the demon motif in the film.
see your tickets, please.
While it's obvious there's something up with the conductor from the way he walks and talks, the motif is still helpful in adding to the tone, and it confirms to less visually astute viewers that yes, this has something to do with a demon. I want to take a brief moment to compliment Alex Lay on the great job he does as Zenitsu. The amount of screaming he does must be really killer on his throat, so it's super impressive how he's able to keep it up. Thinking about that is one of the main reasons that the character doesn't annoy me, honestly. And with that final ticket punch, the plan is set. Sensing a demon nearby, Kyojiro reveals his sword, and we get to hear his theme in full for the first time. His leitmotif is so effective, as the melody's note progression is very easy to remember. It mainly consists of 5 notes, and it progresses by ascending, returning to the starting note, descending, and then returning to the starting note again. I may be reaching a bit here, but I wonder if this melody is structured this way to indicate that Rengoku is the kind of person who always stays true to himself. He will encounter struggles along the way that will challenge him, but just like how the melody starts and ends in the same place, so too will Kyojiro always return to who he is. I don't know, it's just something that came to mind. But back to the movie, we see the demon make their appearance, accompanied by the demon motif.
What a giant! Did you use a blood demon art?
However, it's barely noticeable, giving the audience a pretty good idea what their chances of victory are.
It was difficult to detect you. Know this, if you bare your fangs at the innocent, I will see your bone turn to ash. Flame breathing. First form. Unknowing fire!
That looks so dang cool! And the sequence ends with Tanjiro's theme, indicating that he's greatly impressed and inspired by Kyojiro's skill.
Amazing. And with a single slice.
There's not much time to linger on this moment, as Kyojiro senses another demon and goes off to pursue it.
You will not lay a finger on that man! Your opponent stands before you now.
What is that thing?
As Inosuke charges in, the demon motif plays, letting us know ahead of time that his attack isn't going to work.
First come, first serve!
Hang on! There's still a bystander there!
It won't matter once I kill this!
Fortunately, Kyojiro is there to save him. After rescuing the bystander, he can safely engage the demon.
Let's finish this! Flame breathing. Second form. Rising scorching sun!
And just like that, he goes down as easily as the last, with a triumphant set of horns and trumpets to accompany it.
That was totally cool, bro! Talk about genius swordplay!
Just that one line alone would have been enough to tell you something's off. Tanjiro does not talk like this. But to further drive the point home, the art style shifts and becomes more cartoony and silly. Zenitsu and Inosuke also join Tanjiro, flying around him and calling him bro.
I would be willing to take you all in!
You're awesome, big bro! Brother! Brother!
The music then makes a sudden shift to angelic and peaceful as everyone slows down. Before the lights snap off, and we see that everyone was asleep the entire time. It was nothing more than a dream. The conductor from earlier is seen rushing down the cars and showing signs of actual emotion for the first time. With tears running down his face, he makes this request.
As ordered, I put them all to sleep, sir. Now please, do the same to me as well, won't you? Let me be reunited with my dead wife and daughter. Please, I'm begging you.
Certainly.
This introduction to Enmu is just perfect. The surprise of the hand falling into frame, and the way it moves and looks, with even the bones from his forearm showing, do a wonderful job of unsettling the viewer. And the cherry on top is Landon McDonald's performance. He does a phenomenal job of conveying the sick enjoyment he gets from torturing these poor people.
You did a fine job. Now sleep forever. Dream that you are with your family again.
And what accentuates this feeling is Enmu's theme. The angelic nature of the demon motif juxtaposes his behavior and makes him even more unsettling. It's also the same choir from the end of Anaki, which musically confirms he was the one who gave our heroes their dreams as well. Enmu states that some demon slayers are able to awaken when a demon is nearby, which is why he can't go and kill them at this time. Instead, he enlists the help of these children. As we transition to Tanjiro's dream, the melody for Enmu's theme begins to play. It's beautiful, but also haunting, which fits him really well, as the dreams he shows are happy ones, yet it's all with a sinister desire to inevitably kill them. Once Tanjiro's family appears, the music cuts, leaving the viewer to take in the moment with him.
Look! Brother's back home! Welcome home, Tanjiro!
After embracing them, we see that Tanjiro has reverted back to how he was before he became a demon slayer, scar and all. It's at this point that the main theme of this movie becomes clear. The conductor wished to be with his dead wife and daughter. The children wish to dream as well, likely to escape some other sorrow they're dealing with. And Tanjiro is being shown a dream where he is with his family again. This movie is all about how we deal with difficult circumstances in our lives. More specifically, as will be confirmed later with further examples, it's about death and how we confront it. We then get to see Enmu in his entirety as he explains his plans.
It doesn't matter how powerful a demon hunter you are. The spark that drives these beings comes from the heart. The human spirit. All you have to do is stamp out their spiritual core. You can kill them just like that.
We have to tie up their wrists. Is that right? Yeah.
The children tie ropes around their wrists and fall asleep so that they may enter their dreams. As they do, the choir for Enmu's theme returns for a brief moment before we enter into Tanjiro's dream again.
4, 5, 6.
And then he suddenly burst into tears. We were pretty surprised. What an odd duck!
Well, maybe you're just exhausted is all.
Don't worry about me. I'll be fine.
Man, if it weren't for the malicious intent behind it, this scene would be really heartwarming.
Should a demon appear, sleep. Even inside its stomach, sleep. Oh, that's delightful. You must be having such wonderful dreams. Continue to slumber, and you shall never be roused again.
It's here that I got a bit confused. If his goal is to make everyone not want to wake up by drowning them in blissful dreams, then why aren't Nezuko and his father there with him? It's not fully apparent until later, but the reason is because Enmu is trying to make sure Tanjiro doesn't realize he's dreaming. So instead of showing him a perfect, fantastical world where everyone he loves is alive and well, he instead shows him something much more grounded in reality. The fact that his mother and siblings are there shows that Enmu can see Tanjiro's memories, so he can get an idea of how they might act. But because his father died when he was very young, he doesn't know the kind of person he would be if he was healthy and several years had passed. If he made the dream take place even further back, Tanjiro might pick up on the fact that everyone's ages have changed significantly. So to help keep him under his spell, Enmu only puts Tanjiro back a few years to something that's recent in his mind, and doesn't show him Nezuko just yet so that his mind doesn't deal with too many elements that conflict with reality. This is supported by how Tanjiro, Zenitsu, and Inosuke are portrayed in the first dream of the film. While I'm sure all four of them were shown a similar dream to help Enmu grab a firm hold of their minds by giving them something believable and in the present, the degree to which the main three are off leads me to believe we are seeing Rengoku's dream here. He hasn't known them for more than a few minutes, so his perception of how they would act and talk isn't perfect, hence the change in Tanjiro's speech patterns towards the end. But due to his lack of time with them, Rengoku doesn't really notice it, so Enmu is still able to draw him in. Before we move on, the fact that this is Rengoku's dream is interesting. From Tanjiro's dream, we know that Enmu shows what the person wants to see, so this dream actually informs us a little on Rengoku's character. We see that he wants the main three to look up to him with admiration, and to train them to be great demon slayers. Is it because he's egotistical and wants to be praised, or does he simply wish to be of help to others? With the level of care Enmu showed in Tanjiro's dream, it makes you wonder what he's doing for everyone else.
Here, let me show you. These peaches are delicious.
I love that.
At least for Zenitsu, it's not much. Perhaps Enmu can't make too many incredibly convincing dreams at once, but I think the more likely explanation is that he doesn't seem as much of a threat or as hard to convince. However, just like Tanjiro's dream, you can hear Zenitsu's theme playing in the background, only it's much softer than what we're used to. In the dream itself, the main aspect of it is Nezuko talking with him and showing him great affection. It's pretty fitting that this is what he cares about most, considering the fact that his name literally reads as Goodness, my wife, or Good, Special, or Unique, my wife. Zenitsu Agatsuma. From the moment this name was written on a page, the author told the audience exactly what his main motivation is. Aside from Nezuko, he's also able to use thunder breathing while fully conscious, showing the version of himself that he wishes to be. So perhaps the kanji in his first name is also an indication for who he wants to be as an individual. You can also see peaches from his master's orchard, so he does care for things aside from Nezuko. Inosuke also has a very out there dream, but that's fitting considering who he is.
Survey team! Survey team! We are the cave survey team! Survey team! Survey team! We are the cave survey team!
The version of his theme here is super silly and childish to reflect what's going on. All of his friends are animals that he's the leader of, showing how self-important he feels. And as a callback from the start of the film, the train is a big monster with several limbs, which, on top of being hilarious, also makes you wonder if this is how he actually sees parts of the world. The mouth on his boarhead opens up when he talks near the end, which is a nice detail indicating that he sees himself as an animal. Overall, just a really great summary of Inosuke's personality. Before I discuss Rengoku's second dream, I want to go over what it means to be a Hashira, or at least what I believe it's supposed to mean. Translated to English, the word Hashira literally means pillar. Pillars are used to support a structure, so naming the strongest demon slayers pillars must mean that they serve to support the entire demon slayer core so that it may survive. The main ways one can do that I could think of is to be an example to other core members, protect other members so that they may survive and grow stronger, inspire the core to push themselves to even greater heights, and to train the next generation of demon slayers. Kyojo's first dream showcases all of these aspects, as he protects the trio, inspiring them with his skill, and then offering to train them. It gives the idea that his greatest desire is to be the perfect Hashira. It's a noble ideal, but potentially steeped in self-centeredness, as we still don't know him very well. In time, the film will make it pretty clear the kind of man he is. Okay, now that we have our current idea of Rengoku's character firmly established, let's take a look at what this next dream reveals about him.
Why am I here? Right. To report to my father about becoming a Hashira.
The scene is accompanied by this beautiful choir and string piece, and just like the other dream sequences, it contains elements of his theme. It's much more subtle, to the point you may think it isn't there at all, but considering the other dreams all utilize the character's leitmotifs, it would be strange if that wasn't the case here. The melody is divided into 3 groups, 2 choirs and the backing strings. The first choir ascends and then holds, which is followed by the second choir and violin descending, though with extra notes in between. As the second choir returns to the original note, the first choir follows to meet them. after which they finish the melody from Kyojiro's theme by ascending a little bit more. Though the overall number of notes is different, the direction the music goes perfectly reflects the direction of the original leitmotif. Even if I'm wrong about this, the piece itself still has merits beyond that. It gives such a wonderful feeling of peace and tranquility that perfectly represents how Kyojiro must feel as he delivers the news of his accomplishment.
So what if you've become a Hashira? Worthless. It means nothing. You'll still never amount to anything. Neither you, nor I.
And as a result, the words from his father sting that much more. The scene shifts to the conversation between Kyojiro and his brother Senjuro, and a piano version of Homura begins to play as Kyojiro reflects on all that his family has been through.
He wasn't always like that. In fact, he was once a Hashira himself. He was full of passion. And then one day he quit being a swordsman.
It's at this point that we can start to put together what this song is supposed to represent. In English, Homura translates to flame, and with the piece playing during this scene, we have more than enough to connect it to Kyojiro. But the composers took it one step further. Let's compare the melody of his leitmotif to the melody of Homura. In case you missed it, the melodies are inverted. Kyojiro's melody ascends and then descends, while Homura's melody descends and then ascends. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, Homura is about him in some way. However, without hearing or knowing the lyrics at this point, the specifics are still shrouded in mystery. The answer will come in due time. For now, we go back to the current scene. The story of the Rengoku family is a depressing one, as the death of Kyojiro's mother broke his father, and in turn, the family's bond. Looking at Kyojiro's name, the kanji further tells the story. Kyo means apricot, likely referring to the flowers of the Japanese apricot tree. In the language of flowers, they can refer to faithfulness, elegance, and a purity of heart. Ju means longevity, and Ro means son. Altogether, his parents gave him a name that shows they wished for him to be a pure and faithful son that would live a long life. The fact that the man who helped to give him that name is now treating him so coldly speaks to how much the death of his wife affected him. It's heartbreaking.
Senjuro. To be honest, he was not happy. He said that it meant nothing. Even so, that will not extinguish my passion. This flame in my heart burnt strong.
Normally, you'd see an older sibling try and hide the truth from their younger siblings as a form of protection, but instead, Kyojiro chooses to be honest with Senjuro about how his father felt. He does this to let him know that he remains determined in spite of his father's disapproval, which will hopefully give Senjuro the strength to do the same. Kyojiro is serving as a Hashira, a pillar of strength for his brother, to show him that he can fight his way through these dark times. Though it's never directly stated, it gives a strong impression that he served as Senjuro's father figure for several years. I have to praise Mark Whitten on his line deliveries during this scene. I was so used to his loud and energetic dialogue that I was surprised by how excellent he was with such a slow and calm scene. His emotional range is truly impressive, and it really brings this character to life.
Listen, Senjuro. Keep this firmly in mind. You have an older brother. A brother who believes in you. Whatever path you take, you're going to become a fine man. Just keep that burning passion inside your heart. Let's both do our best, no matter how lonely it gets.
As you've probably noticed, Kyojiro's dream is very different from everyone else's. Rather than being a false reality, it's just a straight-up memory. Obviously, the author wants to show the audience more about him, but what's the in-universe explanation? I believe the reason Enmu does this is for the same reason Tanjiro's dream is more realistic. He is so wary of the threat Kyojiro poses that he wants to show him as few falsehoods as possible to reduce the chances of him catching on to it being a dream. A memory is the best choice in keeping him unaware. However, to raise the least amount of suspicion, he had to pick a recent memory where the ages and appearances of everyone isn't noticeably different. This gives him a much smaller pool of memories to choose from, and the fact that this is the happiest memory Enmu could find speaks both to how rough Kyojiro's life is, and to how much Senju means to him. This one scene tells us so much about both characters that it's honestly pretty insane.
I always use the utmost caution when I engage in battle.
The sound of the teeth is so realistic that I honestly cringe a little every time I hear it. I'm so used to anime like Dragon Ball using very unusual sounds for things like cracking your neck. So the fact that they went to the effort of making it this lifelike is something I can really appreciate. After this scene, we get a quick flashback to Enmu explaining the plan to the children.
The dream world I show them isn't infinite. It's circular, with the dreamer presiding at the center. The realm of the subconscious exists just outside the dream, where you'll find the spiritual core. That's what you must destroy. Once you do that, the owner of the dream will cease to be.
As we journey into Kyojiro's subconscious, it's a massive stone floor engulfed in flames. Having flames represent him makes sense with him being the Flame Hashira and all, but an additional detail is that the stone itself is alight with no source of fuel to be seen. The fire's ability to burn, even in an impossible situation, symbolizes Kyojiro's incredible will to fight, regardless of the circumstances that he's in. As the girl starts to approach his spiritual core, Kyojiro's theme begins to play, this time much more clearly than before.
I've never seen a red one before.
A pretty crucial detail that I missed is what the girl says here. If she's seen other spiritual cores before, this means that Enmu has been using her, and possibly all of the children from earlier, for quite some time. It's very easy to miss, but it further demonstrates how terrible he is. Just before she can strike at his core, Kyojiro's subconscious takes hold and retaliates.
What kind of survival instinct is this?
Never before has choking a child felt or sounded more triumphant. I also love that the animators remembered to show Tanjiro falling over once Kyojiro stood up. Very nice touch. We can see that the boy tasked with killing Tanjiro isn't in any hurry to do so. Who could blame him, considering what he's dreaming about? He definitely seems less experienced compared to the girl from earlier, so perhaps he hasn't been Enmu's pawn for long.
Nezuko, ready? What am I saying? Where's Nezuko?
She went up the mountain to go pick vegetables.
Huh? In broad daylight? I've been saying lots of strange things. Maybe I'm tired. Huh. It's gone.
This break in reality for Tanjiro helps to support my theory about Kyojiro's dream earlier, as he starts to realize that something isn't right about all this. The culmination of his uneasiness seems to awaken his subconscious, as it informs him of what's going on.
Wake up! We're in danger! You've got to wake up! All of this, it's all a dream! Open your eyes!
I like the detail that it only happens after he gets close to the water, since he uses water breathing, which could mean it's closely tied to his subconscious the same way fire is for Kyojiro. However, even if he knows it's a dream, he still has to find out how to wake up.
I've got to wake up.
Bless you, Nezuko. She's so adorable, but also very determined. The music here is so good. It starts with Tanjiro's theme as he contemplates what's going on.
This scent of blood. I know it.
And before he even verbalizes it to the audience,
Nezuko. It's Nezuko.
we can hear the conclusion he comes to. I just love it when music is used to tell the story like this.
My uniform.
What happened?
We were really scared there. You alright?
Sorry, everyone. There's no other choice. I have to go. If the demon who's showing me this dream is nearby, I have to defeat it quickly.
Before he can even try to leave, Enmu throws another obstacle his way.
Where are you running off to?
It's important to remember that it's been over 2 years since he's heard Nezuko speak, and because of how believable Enmu's dreams are shown to be, this must feel exceptionally real to Tanjiro.
I picked lots of vegetables from the mountain. What happened? Tanjiro? Are you all right?
Tanjiro.
I wish I could stay. I do. I'd live with you all forever. Just like how it should have been. From the very beginning. Right here.
Zach Aguilar breaks my heart with this performance. I was admittedly on the fence with him back in Season 1, but you can really tell how much he's grown to embody who Tanjiro is. Zach understands how he thinks and feels, and you can feel it with each word he speaks. At this point, I couldn't possibly ask for someone better to play him.
If things had been as they should have, you'd all be alive. And Nezuko would be able to be in the sunlight. Under the blue sky. That's how it'd be. How it should have been. I would still be here, making charcoal. I would have never laid a hand on a sword.
Considering how most shonen stories are structured, it's easy to forget that Tanjiro never wanted to be a demon slayer. He strives for no grand aspirations, only to be able to spend time with his family in peace. His name is also a reflection of this. For his first name, Tan means charcoal, Ji means to heal, and Ro, like before, means sun. For his last name, Kama is a traditional Japanese wood or charcoal-fueled cook stove or furnace, and Do means door. His kanji all represent how his old life is what he valued most. Fighting is not in his nature, shown by the fact that he's very sympathetic to the demons he fights, often trying to heal their hearts before they pass. After having that life stripped away from him in such a brutally sudden way, the desire to stay here must be immense. I can barely imagine what it would be like if the same had happened to my family. The temptation is so great, in fact, that Tanjiro doesn't even dare to turn around to look at his family once during this scene, as if he knows that he wouldn't be able to resist if he did.
But now, they're all gone. I can never go back!
Tanjiro! Please don't leave us behind!
There are so many things I have to thank you for. And things to apologize for. But I'll never forget you. No matter what, you will always be in my heart. So please, forgive me, I beg you!
I guess I still need to destroy his spiritual core.
Inside of Tanjiro's subconscious, his motif transforms into a simple yet angelic rendition, with a slow tempo and half notes being utilized to represent the immense serenity and light of his soul.
This is what's inside his soul? How is it this beautiful? It's like it stretches forever and feels so warm.
Inosuke's subconscious is yet another cave, with his theme being played with slow, plucky strings.
That topless boar man I saw was also creepy.
We then see the manifestation of his subconscious, which is himself, but with an actual boar's head. The music then enters a frenzied version of his theme after the melody, and it all comes together to make an amusing scene. But if you thought Inosuke's subconscious was funny, then you'll love Zenitsu's. His manifestation is essentially the same as the Zenitsu from the dream, but everything is taken up to 11. He's wielding gardening shears from the orchard as his main weapon.
Do I really have to grope around like this to find his spiritual core? You've gotta be kidding me.
Moving at blinding speeds. And, of course, obsessed with Nezuko.
The only person who's allowed here is Nezuko.
So I'm gonna kill you.
He may be annoying, but scenes like this are still absolutely hysterical.
Oh, then?
Back to Tanjiro, he's still trying to find a way out.
I've gotta hurry. I could smell that Nezuko's hurt! If everyone else is asleep, then we're in big trouble!
As he struggles to come up with a plan, he hears a voice offering guidance.
Tanjiro. Take up your sword. What you must cut is within your reach.
Whether it was actually the spirit of his father or merely his subconscious manifesting in the form of someone he looks up to, it gives Tanjiro the clue he needs. At first, I thought he meant the invisible barrier at the edge of the dream, but Emu stated that the dream is centered around the individual, so he could never reach it. And that's when it hit me.
So to wake up, does that mean... I think I understand. But what if I'm wrong? If what happens here has an effect out there, it'll be over.
The strings build an immense amount of tension, leaving you with goosebumps as Tanjiro gathers his courage.
What I have to slash is my very own neck!
As he wakes, he starts to put everything together.
Who are these people? They're tied to the others with rope. It looks like it's been singed off, but how? Her flaming blood, maybe? That's it! So we were put to sleep when these were punched. For some reason. I have this feeling that I shouldn't sever this rope with my sword. Nezuko, listen! Can you burn the other ropes?
Though it's never stated why he shouldn't, it wouldn't be too far of a reach to believe that the children's souls would be trapped in the subconscious minds that they entered. The fact that Nezuko burning it is okay does add some credence to what Rui said about her flames.
I wonder why you weren't burned to cinders earlier in that explosion. Me and my threads were the only things that were set ablaze. I don't know if it relates to your sister's power, but it has enraged me all the same.
It's possible that her blood demon art has the ability to neutralize others. Tanjiro's consideration allows the children a chance to attack him, and we learn why Emu has been able to control them.
What are you doing? Get off your ass and come help us out! I don't care if you have tuberculosis. If you don't do your job, I'll go tell him, and then he won't show you any more dreams!
It's unforgivable. Taking advantage of them like this.
And because Tanjiro can relate so strongly to their situation, he doesn't hold any ill will toward them.
You just wanted a happy dream, didn't you? I know. I wanted that as well. I wish this was just a bad dream.
This next scene does something very strange, as it uses Rui's leitmotif as the boy reflects on his time in Tanjiro's subconscious. I suppose the two characters are similar in quite a few ways. They're both children who suffered from a terrible illness. They made selfish decisions to hurt others to escape it, and then were ultimately enlightened by the warmth of Tanjiro's heart. I can certainly get behind the use of this motif here, as it calls to mind the different influences Tanjiro has had on people's lives compared to Muzan. However, if this continues to happen throughout the show, Rui's theme will be recontextualized and lose its original meaning, so it should be done very sparingly. Tanjiro's subconscious manifested very differently from the rest. It appears in the form of 6 gold spirits, perhaps representing the 6 members of his family that he's lost, and they actually guide the boy to Tanjiro's spiritual core.
Why bring me here? You're saying because I was searching for it? Even though I was trying to destroy it? I don't understand. Why would you do that?
At his core, Tanjiro is exceptionally selfless, caring for others even if it puts himself at risk.
The glimmering fairies inside of your heart brought light into mine.
Are you all right?
I am now. Be careful.
For the first time in the film, Enmu's theme takes on a different tone, being played with horns rather than piano, indicating that the action is about to pick up.
The demon's upwind. Is he in that first car? It's dangerous, Nezuko, so don't follow me past here!
What's this? You're awake now? Good morning.
The two finally meet, and Enmu immediately starts using his family to rile him up.
Why are you awake? Did I not show you a dream tailored to your every desire? If I had so wished it, it could have been a dream where your family was being slaughtered. Would you have liked that one better? Of course not. Much too distressing. Or here's an idea. A dream where your dear father comes back to life.
He then has an internal monologue on his twisted idea of fun.
I really do love showing people happy little dreams, right before submerging them into a terrible nightmare. Seeing the look of utter confusion and horror on a human's face is simply exquisite. To look upon someone shattered to the absolute core by misfortune, squirming in agony, is like a sweet nectar to me.
His method of torture is perfectly reflected in his name, with En meaning to have a nightmare, and Mu meaning dream or vision. I won't go in depth about it just yet, but I can tell you from personal experience that suddenly going from a feeling of calm to that of utter despair is truly awful. I'd argue there's no better way to break a person than that. As this film goes on, Enmu becomes more and more despicable. He continues to goad Tanjiro into a fight, and then realizes that he can fulfill his master's mission.
What's this? Those earrings he's wearing. What good fortune! Like a moth to flame, he came right to me!
Tanjiro, angered and recognizing the threat he's up against, immediately goes for his strongest technique.
Water breathing! Tenth form! Constant flux!
Blood demon art! Whispers of ordained unconscious mesmerism. Go to sleep, dear child.
The two engage, and one of the best parts in the score starts to play. You can hear the demon and core motifs overlapping with one another, as if the very music itself is fighting for control of the scene.
It didn't work? Sleep now.
It transitions to a guitar rendition of Enmu's melody as he hits Tanjiro with a barrage of his blood demon art.
Sleep now. Sleep now. Sleep now. Go to sleep.
However, as the tide starts to turn in Tanjiro's favor, his theme takes control, and we see the full strength of his will.
But each time he does, he remains self-aware. And takes his own life in order to reawaken.
Soon, the music evolves further, this time with Tanjiro and Enmu's themes battling for control.
To commit suicide, even in the middle of a dream. To take his own life with his own hands. Requires incredible willpower. This rascal is out of his mind!
Why didn't you save us? We needed you, brother!
This whole sequence is so fucked up on so many levels, I don't even know what to say.
Why were you the sole survivor?
You can see it for yourself.
You couldn't even save your own family. You're so useless.
Enmu clearly wants to make him snap, and he does, but not in the way he intended.
You're the one who should have died that day. But instead you've gone and just left us all behind.
Don't put words in the mouths of my family! They would never say that! You're vicious! They insult their memory!
As incredible as that sequence was, there was no way that was the end. And Tanjiro also can tell as much.
That was too easy.
Now that things have progressed this far, Enmu is ready to show his hand.
I understand now. I understand why the Master ordered me to have you disposed of. Disposed with the Hashira! It's the nature of your very existence!
This mass of what I believe is blood and flesh is obviously CG, but unlike most other anime, I think it works well here. Enmu and his powers are meant to be otherworldly, so it makes sense that once he starts to put them on full display, he wouldn't fit in perfectly with the environment around him. After displaying this ability, he explains why he didn't die just now.
You're wondering why I'm still alive, even after you decapitated me? Well, I'll tell you, since I'm feeling so ecstatic. It's because that wasn't actually my true self. I fused my being with this entire train!
Inosuke was right! Not in the way he thought, but still. I love that the throwaway gag at the start actually ended up being foreshadowing for this moment. As ridiculous as fusing with a train may seem as a plan, Enmu makes sure the full implications of what that means are clear.
The more than 200 passengers on this train, or should I say hostages, will soon become part of my body. Do you think you can protect them? Or will my appetite be satiated in full?
I can only protect 2 cars at most. Any more is too much for me to handle.
Unable to handle this alone, Tanjiro moves to get help from his comrades.
Rengoku! Zenitsu! Inosuke! I really need your help! Please wake up, I'm begging you! Nezuko! I'm trusting you to look after the other passengers!
Fortunately, one is able to respond right away.
Keep those eyes open, cause Lord Inosuke is coming through!
Inosuke! The whole train is turned into a demon!
What do you know? I was right all along. Talk about having absolute killer instincts as a leader, huh?
He's so proud of himself, it's hard not to love him.
Lord Inosuke Hashibira! I'm coming through!
And now, Tanjiro doesn't have to fight alone. Things get a little crazier once the train starts turning into what are essentially Enmu's stomachs.
Water breathing. First form. Water surface slash.
With no one else awake, Nezuko is the only other person who can help to defend the passengers. However, the presence of the demon motif already tells us things aren't going to work out.
Thunder breathing. First form. Thunderclap and flash! Six-fold. Nezuko. I will protect you.
You don't need me to say it, do you?
Is Zenitsu awake now? What about Mr. Rengoku? And Nezuko?
People seem to mistake this as Tanjiro thinking Nezuko is asleep, but the pause between the sentences indicates that this is meant to be a separate statement of concern. Something along the lines of, and Nezuko, is she alright? I think they excluded the latter half that typically gets said because they figured the audience would be smart enough to understand that there's no way Tanjiro thinks she's asleep. He was literally talking with her only a few minutes ago. Talking about the actual scene itself, a deeper version of the demon motif is playing that is very close to Muzan's theme. It gives off the feeling that Tanjiro will soon be overwhelmed.
It's all I can do to protect the ones here.
Fortunately, he's about to get the best assistance he could have hoped for.
It would appear that a lot has gone on since I was napping. If the other Hashira were here to see what I let happen, I'd be ashamed!
What happened?
Man, he's so cool!
What was that? Did a demon attack?
Young Kamado, I was quite thorough with my strikes on the way here, so it should take the demon a while to recuperate. This train has 8 cars. I will protect the rear 5. The other 3 will be handled by your sister and that boy in yellow. During all this, you will go with the boar-headed lad and search for the demon's head. I hope you're fired up!
Even after just waking up, he's able to quickly assess the situation, and then divides up the responsibilities based on what will be the most difficult. As he has the most strength and experience, he takes on the largest burden, so as to not overwork the others. And if you were doubting his ability to protect 5 cars simultaneously... yeah, I think he's got it.
Inosuke! Where are you?
Shut up or I'll end you! I already got my marching orders from Mr. Bug-Eyes! Even with him bossing me around, though, he was really cool! And for some reason, that pisses me off!
It takes a lot for Inosuke to acknowledge anyone, so it speaks volumes that Kyojuro was able to impress him after knowing him for such a short time.
Inosuke! Keep an eye on the 3 cars in the front!
You don't have to tell me! Besides, using my awesome 7th form, I've already found what it is we're looking for! The Master's weak spot!
Inosuke, ready? Let's go! Inosuke!
He seems pretty suspicious!
Just who the hell are you? Leave this area!
Water breathing! 6th form! Whirlpool! Are you alright, Inosuke?
It's not like you came to my rescue, okay?
I'm sorry. It's here. Inosuke! The demon's head is under here!
Don't order me around! I'm the leader, remember?
Then what's next?
I love how Tanjiro doesn't argue about who the leader is. So many protagonists do exactly that, and it's gotten so old. It also shows that Tanjiro really understands Inosuke and how to work with him.
This is beast breathing, second fang! Slice!
The giant spine is so unsettling. There hasn't been too much of it, but the elements of body horror that have been implemented in the film work really well.
Water breathing, 8th form! Waterfall basin!
As Enmu starts taking on more defensive measures, Tanjiro and Inosuke start devising a plan.
It's healing so fast, the wound's already closed up. Just exposing the bone took everything I could muster to. Inosuke! Let's synchronize our attacks! You'll slash at the flesh, which will allow me to strike at the bone!
You wanna know something? That's not half bad! Good thinking!
Thank you!
I really like the subtle character growth Inosuke has gone through up to this point. When he was first introduced, he took orders from no one, and was very much a one-man show. Once again, this is reflected in his first name, with E meaning I, No meaning no, and Ske meaning assistance, or help. The very simplicity of his name tells you something about his character, as it straight up forms a sentence telling people that he doesn't need help from anyone. But after spending time with Tanjiro and being shown respect and compassion, he's slowly opened up more and more, to the point he'll actually listen to and work with him. Although he can still be a bit of a tsundere about it when he's upset. Also, the Ino in his name is a reference, as it sounds similar to Inoshishi, the word for boar. Just thought I'd throw that Easter egg in there.
Eyes of forced unconscious sleep. Dream.
A blood demon art! I'm still able to break the spell! Idiot! When you wake up, keep your eyes closed or you'll just fall asleep again! Damn! The moment I wake up, I can't help but look directly into one of those demon eyes! Again! Wake up! Wake up! Come on! Your neck! Slash it! Wake up!
It may seem ridiculous that Tanjiro can't stop from opening his eyes each time, but it's important to keep in mind that he's literally committing suicide in a dream that feels like it's real each time to wake up. The pain and panic that would induce, combined with the adrenaline of the current situation rushing through his mind, it would be exceptionally difficult for anyone to force their eyes to stay closed upon waking up. And then, of course, there's the fact that Enmu has so many massive eyeballs everywhere to grab his attention and give him very few safe places to look. The human brain is very easy to distract, so a bunch of big blue eyeballs with the word dream written on them is going to be very hard to avoid glancing at for even just a split second.
This is a dream! There's no time left! Wake yourself up!
On my first viewing, I kept wondering if he'd ever try that, and it nearly worked too!
I'm wearing the hide of the mountain god on my head. I bet he's too scared to look me in the eye.
Or it's having a hard time telling which way Inosuke is looking.
Hey, it came in handy.
Inosuke!
I won't let you take away my chance to dream!
Did he just stab you?
I'm okay.
Forget about that bastard!
I can't just leave him to die!
I can respect his decision, especially since the engineer likely is in a similar situation to everyone else Enmu was controlling, but man, I don't think I could ever be that selfless. Enmu is done taking his breather, and begins his assault once again.
Let's combine our strength! Once we've synchronized our breathing, we'll attack as one!
I love that he actually snorted. And now we get to see some truly great UFO table animation. never cease to impress me.
Damn it! If we fall asleep now...
Not today! Come on! Beast breathing! Fourth form! Slice and dice!
And with Inosuke's job finished, Tanjiro can deal the final blow.
Father, please guide my blade! Inokami Kagura! Clear blue sky! Want him to live with his hands stained with blood?
This degree of selflessness may be a bit ridiculous, but it really is one of his best qualities. At least for me, I find it to be more endearing.
Santoro! Are you alright?
The fact that he cares so much and still doesn't know his name is so funny and sweet. It's no wonder he's a fan favorite.
I don't think I can move now. Can you go help the others? See if anyone's hurt. That engineer. Is he alright?
Let him die for all I care! Did you somehow forget he's the one who stabbed you in the first place? But if you really want to know, his leg's shattered and he can't walk anymore. Just let him rot!
Then he's already suffered enough, don't you think?
Okay, considering that Tanjiro didn't die, I'd say that's pretty fair.
Help him, Inosuke. For me.
Fine! But only 'cause you asked. It's the least I can do as a leader!
I can't regenerate. Have I lost? Am I going to die? Me? Ridiculous. Absurd! There was so much more to do!
As Enmu lays dying on the ground, instead of getting his backstory like past demons, we instead see his internal reflection about everything that's transpired.
This is his fault! Even with all the human hostages I had in my possession, I still wasn't able to get the upper hand. Is this the power of a Hashira? That sun-colored boy was fast too. And then there's her, a demon fighting alongside the demon slayers. What treachery is this?
Despite not learning who he was as a human, the pathetic state he's in and the gloomy rendition of his theme backing the scene still make me feel a little sorry for him.
Damn it! Damn it all! It all started going to hell when that little brat was able to wriggle out of my spell. He's to blame for this. And that beastly boar child, I should have killed him when I had the chance to. But I was never able to catch his gaze and put him back to sleep. Have I truly lost? Is this the end? Ah, what a terrible, wretched nightmare this is. Am I no different from those other lesser demons who are killed off?
While our heroes did manage to defeat Enmu, there were quite a few close calls. If even a single one of them was missing, there would have been several civilian casualties at the very least. And without Nezuko, it's possible none of them would have woken up in time to stop him. It took everyone working together for things to turn out as well as it did. And this was just against Lower Moon 1. It's only going to get harder from here, a fact that's made even more unsettling by the way Enmu talks about the upper moons.
The upper ranks of our kind have stayed the same for hundreds of years. Even Hashira with high body counts have fallen by their hands. Do they have otherworldly powers? Even after receiving so much of his blood, I couldn't compete with them. It's not fair. If only I could turn back time, then I could undo this awful, horrible nightmare.
With the demon finally gone, Kyojuro goes to help Tanjiro.
You've mastered total concentration constant. That's quite impressive. You're one step closer to being a Hashira. That's one step out of 10,000, mind you.
I'll do my best.
You're bleeding from the gut. Regulate your breathing. Take full control of it. Picture your nerves reaching all through your body. Can you see it? The torn blood vessel. That's it. Now, stop the bleeding. Focus. Good. You succeeded.
The idea that a breathing technique would allow him to do this may seem too out there to make sense, even in this universe. But when you think about it, it's fairly plausible for a wound this size. The breathing techniques are essentially an insane degree of muscle control. So in this universe, you can develop enough control to compress some of your muscles onto a small wound and apply the necessary pressure to allow the blood to coagulate and not spill out. And just to make sure both Tanjiro and the audience don't get the wrong idea about it, Kyojuro points out that it's not magic or a cure-all.
Mastering your breathing. It will open many doors for you. Now, it won't solve everything, but it will help.
Now, there's something I've neglected to mention until now. On my first viewing, from the moment the train had crashed, something felt off to me. The climax was great, sure, but it didn't have that feeling of finality to it. I also seen a lot of Ufotable's work, and while the animation in the fight was amazing, it wasn't the best they're capable of. Even compared to the battle with Rui, it didn't have that punch to it. The animators hadn't truly popped off yet. Throughout this entire scene, I had this sense of unease that something terrible was about to happen. This wasn't over. And that's when... he arrived.
Those eyes. He's upper 3. What's he doing here?
What an entrance. I was expecting an upper rank, but I figured it would be 6 or 5, just to give us a taste of the gap in power between the upper and lower moons. The fact that we are jumping all the way to upper 3 sent chills through my whole body. The musical choice here was also quite unexpected, with a guitar rendition of the demon motif accompanied by drums and chanting that sound almost like some sort of tribal dance or ritual. Every aspect of this scene screams this demon is unlike any we've seen before.
Flame breathing. Second form. Rising scorching sun!
With just that one exchange, I could already tell I was in for something wild.
That's a fine sword.
His speed of regeneration and sheer malice behind his attack. So this is an upper rank. Why would you go after a wounded person first over me?
I thought that he'd get in the way of our little chit-chat is all.
What is it you would like to discuss? While this is our first time meeting, I already dislike you.
Well, I dislike weak human beings. The mere sight of them makes my skin crawl.
If that is the case, I do not believe we will ever get along.
It took me till writing this script to realize this, but the fact that Kyojuro says this implies that he didn't have a fully predetermined opinion of him from the outset, despite the fact that he was a demon, and an upper rank at that. Considering how quickly he judged Tanjiro and Nezuko in their first meeting, he's changed quite a bit. They must have left a real impact on him.
Be that as it may, let me make you an offer. Why don't you become a demon as well?
No thanks.
Not even a moment of hesitation. Still, we haven't seen a demon make an offer like this before, which makes Upper 3 even more unusual.
I can tell just by looking at you that you're strong. Your fighting spirit has been tempered like quality steel. Your name?
I'm the Flame Hashira. Kyojuro Rengoku.
I am Akaza. Kyojiro, let me tell you why despite being a Hashira, your strength is not enough.
Now that the two are acquainted, Kyojiro's motif melds into the music with Akaza's, which leads to this conflict of worldviews.
Because you're merely human, destined to grow old and eventually die. Become a demon, Kyojiro. Doing so would allow you to better yourself for another 100, even 200 years.
Both growing old and passing away, these are things that make being human beautiful. Those may seem like weaknesses to you, but our lives are all the more precious and honorable because of them. You see, true strength does not just refer to the physical body. This boy is not weak. Don't insult him. Let me be clear. The two of us will never see eye to eye, no matter what twisted reasons you give. I will not yield.
I see. Technique development. Destructive Death Compass Needle. I guess I'll just have to kill you then.
The kanji on the snowflake is the symbols for 1 to 12, and because he calls it a compass needle, his technique has to do with directions in some way, like how people say something is coming at you at 3 o'clock. What this could mean is unclear, but the uncertainty makes it all the more unsettling. To take it even further, Akaza's full leitmotif is so unusual. The guitar continues to be a primary instrument, and there's now a single woman chanting. It's so odd that I had to sit down and try and figure out why they made it this way. I thought about what each element made me feel. The guitar primarily gave me a feeling of aggression, which the reason behind that is pretty straightforward, but the chanting was more difficult. I mentioned that it gave me tribal dance and ritual vibes earlier, so I thought about what ideas and feelings that brought to mind. The conclusion I came to is that it evokes a feeling of simple, old-fashioned ways of doing things with little technology. To see if this was going anywhere, I compared my conclusion to something that was already predetermined by the author, the kanji in Akaza's name. This one is pretty interesting. A means gentle or docile, Ka means cave, and Z means position or status. Perhaps part of his name refers to who he was as a human, because gentle and docile are not how I describe what I've seen so far. The part about position or status could indicate that he has some pride or focus on his standing, but that also has no relation to the feelings I get from the music. The cave part, however, does have something similar. Caves evoke an idea of darkness, but my mind also drifted to the idea of people living in caves, which then went back to the same idea of simple ways of life from long ago. Taking that and thinking about it in context with everything that happens next, I think I understand what Yuki and Go were going for when they created these pieces. They choose to use chanting to evoke an idea of a simpler time where things were done in an old-fashioned way, because Akaza's method of fighting is also very simple and old-fashioned, as the only weapons he uses are his hands and feet.
I can't keep track of either of them!
I love it when anime does this. Getting to see what a fight looks like from a normal person's perspective is always a great way to establish the scale of speed the combatants are displaying. The animation has also taken a step up, and with it just being the start, I was absolutely enraptured. Kyojiro creates an opening, but it's quickly closed. Akaza's rate of regeneration is exceptionally faster than any demon we've seen so far. Creating an opening to capitalize on is going to be a whole lot harder. It's also only been Akaza's theme playing in the background. Even though Kyojiro is the only one to have landed any blows so far, it doesn't feel like he's in control at all. All throughout the fight, Akaza continues to talk about his philosophy, clearly still trying to convince Kyojiro to accept his offer.
Watching the hideous decline of someone blessed with your powers, it pains me more than you know. While you're still young and strong, your life should be cut short. Destructive Death. Airtight.
this might just be my favorite piece in the score. As Akaza starts to use some fancier techniques, his theme continues to play alone, but the demon motif within it is being played by Kyojiro's orchestra.
In that case... Flame-breathing technique. Fourth form. Blooming flame undulation!
The orchestra then grows in prominence as Kyojiro goes on the offensive.
I can't slice his head off if I continue fighting him at a distance like this. Very well. Close combat it is!
Those reflexes! Brilliant!
Lucian Dodge was such a perfect casting for Akaza. He truly sounds and feels like he's having a blast in this life or death duel.
Those breathtaking sword skills will be lost too! Doesn't that thought make you sad, Kyojiro?
They are simply aspects of being a human being! Why would it? Stay there! We can't reopen that wound of yours! It'll kill you!
As the fight transitions to the forest, Kyojiro's theme takes more of the center stage. But just like before, it's played using Akaza's guitar.
Keep your eyes on me.
They could have done what they did earlier with Emu and Tanjiro's battle, having their themes meld together, but I really appreciate the creativity of mixing just the instrumentation. It makes both sides feel musically present and combative, even when their individual themes aren't playing.
Such skilled movement!
Red Goku!
Watch out, Bug Eyes!
As the first phase of the fight comes to an end, Akaza once again repeats his offer.
You sure you won't turn into a demon? Think of it this way. If you did, we could spar with each other endlessly. Imagine how much stronger we'd become!
With how much he's talked about it, it's clear that he isn't just doing this on a whim. He genuinely wants Kyojiro to become a demon. He doesn't want him to die. And that makes him even scarier, because it means this entire time, he hasn't really been trying.
Never! Let me make this clear. I do not like you. I will not become a demon!
Flame breathing.
A third form!
The chant this time around had less energy than the previous ones, giving off the feeling that Akaza's theme itself is uncertain. As a result, Kyojiro's theme seizes the opportunity.
Blazing Universe!
What a magnificent attack!
I want to join the fight, but they're moving so fast, I can't find an opening. These two are on a whole other level. Getting between them would get me killed for sure!
Even Inosuke, the one who normally charges head first into danger, is frozen with fear by the sheer gap in strength and skill.
Even if I did find an opportunity, I know I'd only end up slowing him down!
This struggle is futile! Continuing this meaningless assault will only result in one outcome! Your death!
The tide starts to turn in Akaza's favor, little by little, as he begins to inflict wounds on Kyojiro's body.
Flame breathing, first form, unknowing fire!
Killing you now would be a waste! You haven't reached your peak yet!
Second form. Rising scorching sun!
And yet, his theme refuses to relent.
In just a few short years, your abilities would be sharpened to an even finer point!
Third form, blazing universe! Fourth form, blooming flame undulation!
Destructive death.
Even as the chants try to force their way through, even as he's left battered and bruised, he refuses to yield.
Leitmotifs form! Flame Tiger!
Disorder!
Come at me! Wait, is that it? Did he win?
With Kyojiro's theme putting on such an impressive display, it feels like he should have come out on top in that exchange. But Kyojiro's wounds have taken their toll.
No way. It can't be. Don't tell me it's over. I won't have you die on me. Mr. Rengoku. Rengoku! Rengoku!
Even after all of this, Akaza still tries to convince him.
Don't you see that fighting to death in that frail human body will never measure up to mine? Those impressive attacks that you inflicted upon me have already healed completely. You, on the other hand, a smashed left eye, shattered ribs, damage to the internal organs. All irreparable. If you were a demon, you'd heal in the blink of an eye, and those wounds would be but mere scratches. In the end, a human can never surpass a demon.
Things look very bleak, and with our heroes frozen by fear, fatigue, and pain, no one is able to come to his aid. It all feels so hopeless.
So this is how it is, then.
I will see my duty fulfilled! No matter what it takes, no one shall die here! I'll inflict as much damage as quickly as possible. Flame breathing. Esoteric art!
Esoteric means something that is known by a select few with specialized knowledge or interest. What Kyojiro is doing here is something so unique that it's possible not even most Flame Hashira could use it.
What an impressive fighting spirit! That brilliant strength of mind! And that ironclad stance! Now you have to become a demon! Just imagine it! We'd be able to fight each other for the rest of eternity!
Set your heart ablaze. Overcome your limits! I am the Flame Hashira! Kyojiro Rengoku! The 9th form! Rengoku!
Having an attack that you share a name with is pretty cool in and of itself, as if you're attacking someone with a manifestation of yourself. And because it's his last name, it's like he's calling upon the strength of his family to aid him. Taking it another step further, with his father being a former Flame Hashira, it's possible many of his ancestors have served in that role. If that's the case, it would make the attack feel like a culmination of all past Flame Hashira as well. However, there's one more aspect to it. Every single one of Kyojiro's attacks had names that related to flames and heat. So what about Rengoku? What does it mean in English? Does it follow suit? While interpretations vary in different pieces of media, there are some that do indeed associate this word with flames. That word, the name of his family, the name of the attack that Kyojiro is about to strike Akaza with every fiber of his being, is Purgatory. This whole sequence is fantastic, but the part that always gets me is just how tense it is. You feel every second.
Mr. Rengoku? Where is he? There. Did he win?
But it wasn't enough. With Kyojiro at his most vulnerable, Akaza makes one final plea.
Kyojiro, you must know this wound will kill you! Save yourself! Save that you'll become a demon! Can't you see? Your strength makes you truly special!
This is purely my interpretation, but I think in this moment, he's actually considering the offer. Staring death in the face will shake even the most iron will to their core. And it's for this very reason that I believe Kyojiro begins to reflect on a conversation he had with his mother long ago.
Kyojiro?
Yes, what is it, Mother?
I want to ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly. Do you know why it is you were born with greater strength than so many others?
No, ma'am, I don't!
It is so that you can protect the weak. Those who are born blessed with more bountiful gifts than others are obligated to use those gifts for the sake of the world, for all of our fellow brothers and sisters. You must never use that God-given strength to bring harm to mankind, or for your own selfish desires. It is the duty of those born strong to help those who may be less fortunate. A responsibility you must carry onward with due purpose. Be sure you never forget that.
I won't!
The reason Kyojiro lives his life the way he does is all because of a promise he made to his mother shortly before she passed away.
Kyojiro, I don't have much time left. Having such a strong, gentle child was a true blessing.
I've always been a sucker for the bonds of family, and to have this beautiful piece to accompany the scene gets the tears welling up every time.
I believe in you.
Having seen what's running through Kyojiro's mind, we already know his answer.
Mother, it was I who was blessed to have been born to such a woman as you!
His will to continue fighting is nothing short of inspirational. And to have his mother's theme playing to start the piece adds so much weight.
He stopped it? What unbelievable strength! And even after I've skewered his body with my arm!
For the first time in the fight, Akaza is afraid.
Damn it! The sun will rise soon! I have to kill him and make my escape! Why can't I pull my arm out?
I won't let you escape!
What a legend! The pain must be excruciating, yet he refuses to relent even for a second. I did wonder why Akaza doesn't try to kick him, but I don't think he can. Just lifting his foot for a split second gave Kyojiro all the leverage he needed to start pushing him back. If he shifts all of his weight onto one foot for a kick, his instability could result in the sword slicing clean through. He's completely at his mercy.
I know Mr. Rengoku ordered me to stay back, but I just can't any longer! This is my only chance. I have to slice that demon's head off, and fast!
As Akaza struggles to get free, the demon and core motifs battle once again.
The sun is rising! I have to get away! Let go of me! Let go of me!
let go! Not till I remove your head from your shoulders!
Before we continue, there's something extremely important that I feel I need to tell you. It's the reason I even decided to make this video in the first place. Whenever you experience any form of media, the way you react to it is affected by who you're around. You may feel incredibly excited or emotional about a certain scene, but if you're with friends, family, or in a public place like a cafeteria or a movie theater, you try to contain those emotions so as to not bother others. In doing this, we stop ourselves from being able to fully process the way a piece of media makes us feel. My first time seeing Mugen Train was in theaters. The second was about a year later with two of my brothers in a hotel room. When the second season was coming out and they made the film into a 6-episode arc, I watched it to see what changes or additions there may have been. That was the first time I ever watched this story alone, free to let my emotions flow. Once I got to Kyojiro's impalement and his mother came on screen, the tears started to flow and they did not stop. Throughout the entire rest of the film, I was crying and weeping, even well after the credits had stopped rolling. I've always been an emotional person, but once I had a chance to calm down, I realized how abnormal the degree to which Kyojiro affected me was, especially compared to characters from other shows that I enjoyed more and who I got to know for far longer. The quality of the atmosphere built by the story and music, while incredible, didn't do enough to explain the way I felt, at least to the degree that I felt it. There was something very different about this character that struck me very deeply and personally. So to figure out what it was, I analyzed the end of the fight in great detail. Akaza stabs Kyojiro through his diaphragm and the top of his stomach. The arm is holding back most of the blood, but he'll still have a difficult time breathing. And with a hole at the top of his stomach, he could very well have acid dripping down on his internal organs. But perhaps he can't feel much of it, since at least part of his spine has definitely been damaged, if not completely run through. The only part I had any strong relation to was the struggle to breathe. For those of you who don't know me very well, my right lung collapsed back in 2018, just a few days before my 21st birthday. The experience left a profound impact on my life, so I thought it may be the key. While Kyojiro does show some difficulty breathing, the hindrance on his breathing isn't really focused upon, and in recent years I've watched shows with characters whose lungs do collapse, yet they never impacted me anywhere close to how he did. A collapsed lung and difficulty breathing were simply too surface level. However, I could tell I was onto something, so I reflected deeper on those dreaded weeks, and it finally hit me. It was death. This entire film was about facing death. The conductor who was so stricken with grief that he couldn't bear a life without his wife and daughter. Kyojiro trying to support his brother as his family collapses from the passing of his mother. Tanjiro struggling to leave an idyllic life with his deceased family behind, and the clashing views on death between Akaza and Kyojiro chipped away at my armor slowly but surely. By the time we reach the end, my heart is so vulnerable that when I'm hit with a battle I know all too well, facing one's own death, my heart began to break. To better understand the significance of what I'm going to tell you, I need to explain what dying actually feels like. Admittedly, part of this is me finding an excuse to vent about my trauma that I've been holding on to for nearly 5 years. But my main reason is because I truly believe my feelings toward Kyojiro and this film will make very little sense without it. My younger, ignorant self certainly wouldn't get it. I'm going to keep it to the information that is either integral to the explanation of how it feels, putting things into perspective, or is needed to explain likely questions you may have about what happened. It was a struggle finding the right words for this, and even the ones I was able to come up with barely convey even a fraction of the reality. There's only so much words can tell a person, because they're really just tools for conveying emotions or feelings. And without a similar experience to compare them to, most of it will fall on deaf ears. But I have to try. If you are not comfortable with being this in-depth about dying, If you have a similar trauma that you feel may be triggered by this, or if you think I'm just wasting your time and you want to get back to the movie discussion, you can jump to this timestamp here. I won't judge you, and you can always come back later if you wish. Alright, here we go. On November 3rd, 2018, around noon, a cyst on the top of my right lung burst, creating a hole that allowed air to flow into my chest cavity. At first, I only felt a strange feeling near my stomach, similar to hunger. It's possible the increase in pressure was pushing against it and making me feel that way, but maybe I actually was just hungry. Regardless, I went downstairs to get something to eat. But once I reached the kitchen, the entire right side of my chest started to hurt, and I stood hunched over the island for several minutes. My parents took me to urgent care, but I guess we arrived too early, because when they listened to my lungs with the stethoscope, they didn't notice anything wrong. They said it was likely some kind of muscle virus causing pain, and I think they gave me some medication for it. Obviously, it didn't help, but at that point, I had started to get a bit more accustomed to the pain, and with the idea that it was a simple virus planted in my brain, I approached the whole situation with some positivity. I had my job as a bowling mechanic that afternoon, so I spent the rest of my day relaxing, taking 2 Advil every 6 hours to help with the pain. After walking down 1 story's worth of stairs to head out for work, I was completely winded. I knew something wasn't right, but I continued to tell myself that everything was fine. The urgent care said it wasn't anything serious. The pain and exhaustion continued as I walked around, climbing in and out of the lane machines. As the air continued to fill more of my chest cavity, the pressure forced my right shoulder to stick up in a sort of half shrug. The pressure on my muscles and nerves, as well as the muscles in my shoulder being forced to stay in that position, made it so incredibly sore. Honestly, much of the physical pain from the experience came from my shoulder alone, and it was far more excruciating than you might think. My shift came to an end, and as I lay down to go to sleep that night, all of the air shifted on top of my lung, crushing it flat. It felt like someone was sitting on my chest, and I was unable to breathe. I quickly sat up in a panic as I was trying to understand what was happening to me. I tried to sleep at an angle with my back and head resting against the headboard. However, I couldn't maintain it well, so I looked for somewhere else to sleep. I found a spot in a different room that gave my back the support it needed, but the pressure on my right shoulder still made getting comfortable very difficult. I tried shifting and adjusting my body to find any position that wouldn't hurt. And that's when the true hell started. My subconscious mind started speaking to me, saying, "Go write your will." I was stunned and confused. The voice came back saying, "You may not wake up tomorrow." Soon there was no rest between the panicked messages, repeating roughly the same phrases on loop, and I felt an intense compulsion to listen. However, I tried to ignore it. I figured it was my brain jumping to the worst conclusion like I had learned about in my psychology class, or that it was another one of my OCD episodes, in which case I just needed to ignore it and assure myself that nothing was wrong and it would go away. But it didn't. No matter what my conscious mind thought, no matter how much I tried to reassure myself, it just wouldn't stop. I went downstairs to get some water and maybe take some more Advil, all the while the feeling continued to grow and persist. As I stood at the kitchen sink, ready to take a sip of water, it was getting to be too much. I kept thinking, "You're okay, you're going to be all right," to try and fight it. But it eventually overwhelmed my heart. I crumpled to the floor and started to cry from the sheer weight of what I believed to be my unavoidable death. I started begging God to just make it stop. All of the physical pain I experienced that day, and heck, even all of the pain I experienced throughout my life up until that point, was nothing compared to the mental anguish of having my conscious and subconscious minds essentially at war with one another about the fact that I might die tonight. This was my first experience with dying. Of all the times I had heard about how death feels, in life and in various pieces of media, it was always about something physical, like feeling cold. But those are just the symptoms of your physical body dying. The cold, for example, is blood leaving your body or your heart coming to a stop. In reality, death is an emotion. That's the only way I can think to describe it. The intensity of the feeling of my impending demise was so immense and unlike anything I had ever felt before. So much so that the only word I can think of to describe it is simply the name of what was happening. Dying. It was a unique sensation, and yet it had this sense of familiarity, as if it's something inherent to the human condition, to the point where you know exactly what it is, even if you've never experienced it before. It's just like any other emotion. So powerful and intense that you know exactly what it is when you feel it, yet we struggle to describe them with words that aren't synonyms for that exact emotion. And in case you're wondering, that feeling you get whenever you could potentially die from something, like whenever you're standing at a great height, is not the same thing. In those scenarios, that's a feeling of, my life could be over if this happened. This was, I am dying. I might not live to see another sunrise. It's the sensation that a vital part of your body is ceasing to function. If it weren't for the words of that doctor and my past experience with resisting compulsions, I probably would have written my will that night. Even then, it's still a miracle I resisted, because the strength of that compulsion was at least 3 times greater than any I'd ever felt before. I went back upstairs to try and sleep, as my pain and subconscious continued to torment me. It's possible that I did get some sleep, but I can assure you that I did not have a single dream. In the morning, my subconscious was silent. Maybe it's because I managed to live to the next morning, validating my belief that I couldn't possibly have been dying. Even without it, physical pain still plagued me. The right half of my chest still hurt immensely, and the soreness in my right shoulder made so many things difficult and painful. Driving, coughing, sneezing, and worst of all, laughing. Laughter hurt so much that I actively avoided any media that could potentially cause me to do so. Even though I desperately needed something to keep my spirits up, the pain just wasn't worth it. That night, the voice didn't return, but the pain still kept me from being able to dream. I didn't tell my parents about my problem sleeping. I'm kind of stupid like that. I think I didn't want to bother them or make them worry or something. Fortunately, my mom saw where I was sleeping the next morning, so I told her. Being a pharmacist, she knew that 2 Advil every 6 hours wasn't enough for this level of pain, so she had me take 4 instead, which managed to help a fair bit. Of course, that didn't stop the exhaustion. Walking around my university that day was such a struggle. You may be wondering why I hadn't gone to the hospital at this point after suffering through this for 3 days. And that's a fair question. The reason is because I had a group presentation on Tuesday. My partner and I had spent nearly 2 months researching and preparing our project. I would have felt awful about leaving him to do the presentation all on his own, so I decided to go see my personal doctor on Tuesday after it was over. You may think I'm a great guy for being so selfless, and I do give myself some credit, but that decision was heavily steeped in ignorance and pain meds. If I had known what was really going on or didn't have any medication, I don't think I would have been able to do it. I say this not to be self-deprecating, but because it will be relevant later. Night comes, and with the extra Advil as well as a heavier dose of Benadryl from my mom, I actually got some real sleep that night. I woke up, went to class, and my partner and I gave our presentation. I was a little rough at the start as I adjusted to the pain, but things went pretty smoothly from there. In case you were wondering, we got a 98. After that, I went with my mom to see my doctor. He put the stethoscope to my chest and suddenly started bouncing back and forth between my lungs as he tried to figure out why he couldn't hear anything from the right side. He sent me to get an x-ray so we could see what was going on. After that, I went home as we waited for the results. I had work that afternoon, so I started driving. With all the evidence before me, I started putting it together in my head. Eventually, I thought, I think my lung collapsed. I then scoffed and said to myself, I think I know if my lung collapsed. A few seconds later, my mom calls me with the results from the x-ray. You need to stop at work so I can take you to the hospital. Your lung has collapsed. If you laughed at that, don't feel bad. I did too after hanging up. It's kind of funny how certain I was. She got me to the emergency room, and after the doctor numbed up the side of my chest with 2 tiny injections, they made a small incision and shoved a tube into my chest to allow the air to escape. The feeling of relief was instantaneous. It was the best I'd felt since this all started. I could feel my lungs starting to expand again. Finally, it was all over. That one single thought sealed my fate. After a couple minutes, the doctors wanted to get an x-ray to make sure my lung was reinflating properly. And to get the best image, you have to inflate your lung as much as you can. The reason for why what's about to happen is conjecture on my part, but it makes the most sense. With the pressure reduced and the feeling of calm washing over me, I breathed in the way I normally would. The problem is that there was still air in my chest cavity preventing my lung from fully expanding. The rate I tried to fill my lung was too fast, and because it couldn't expand enough to take it all in, it started to flow through the hole at the top. The force of the air pushing its way out, combined with the pressure in my chest cavity suddenly increasing at the same time, sent me into an intense coughing fit. It was so excruciating. The worst physical pain I had ever felt. I coughed for several seconds, until I eventually had no air in my lungs to cough out. My body's natural survival instinct kicked in, forcing me to take in air as fast as I possibly could, repeating the mistake. Before I could process even a bit of the oxygen, the cycle begins anew. This went on for so long. I think it was 25 to 30 seconds, maybe even more. It's hard to tell, as it felt like it lasted much longer. Without the ability to process new oxygen, the supply to my bloodstream was running out. I had lost access to one of the most vital elements for survival. That's when that horrid emotion returned. An emotion is often referred to by different names depending on intensity. Sadness can range from sad to upset to distraught. In the same way, the intensity of the emotion I felt on my first night was far less than what I was feeling in the ER. If that was dying, then this was death. It felt like I only had mere seconds left. And unlike before, it felt like it was guaranteed. I started to panic. I wanted to scream to the nurse for help, but the coughing wouldn't stop. I just stared at him, immense pain coursing through my body as death completely overtook my heart and mind. Oh God, am I dying? This can't be happening. I haven't even turned 21 yet. Quit standing there and help me! Can't you see I'm suffering? Soon I could feel my consciousness fading, and darkness started creeping in at the edges of my vision. And if that wasn't horrifying enough, it felt like I knew the exact number of seconds I had left before I lost consciousness, before I would never open my eyes again. Stop coughing, please. God, what do I need to do? It's too soon. There's still so much I wanted to do. Is this it? Is this really how it all ends? Once my consciousness had nearly faded away, my body's ability to move my muscles decreased enough that I was able to take control and slow my breathing just enough to prevent the cycle from continuing. I was a mess. I was full of relief, feeling so peaceful and calm, believing that my suffering was over, to then immediately transition to the worst physical pain and mental anguish I'd ever experienced was just too much for my heart to take. As I said earlier, no better way to break a person than that. After speaking with some friends, I realized that those internal thoughts I had followed the 5 stages of grief. However, I never reached acceptance. I couldn't accept what was happening. Perhaps I would have in the last 5 to 3 seconds. Who can say? Though there was more suffering and a surgery ahead of me, it never got that bad again, and I eventually made it home. Later on, out of curiosity, I researched if you actually could cough yourself to death, and I couldn't find a single case. As far as I'm aware, it's impossible. I thought that might make me feel better, that it might erase at least part of the trauma from my mind. But it did nothing. Even if I wasn't actually going to die in that moment, it didn't change the fact that the pain, the failed vital organ, and the lack of oxygen all came together to convince me, down to my very soul, that I was mere seconds from death. No amount of consolation will ever be able to undo that. Whenever I saw a brave hero in a piece of media fighting through impossible odds, I would often find myself thinking that I would be able to do the same. I could definitely face an army far larger than my own. I could take several arrows and still get back up to make sure my friends can make it out alive. I wouldn't let the fear of dying stop me from being a hero. I think there's a lot of us who have had such fantasies before, but they all come from a place of ignorance. We didn't have any idea what it would actually be like to be in that position, to stare death in the face. Now that I have, I know that if I was in Kyojiro's position, suffering immense pain, feeling my impending death fast approaching, and then being given a chance to escape it, I would have said yes. That may sound insane. I've heard people not understand why anyone would choose to become a demon, to forsake who they are, to give up their memories, to choose to become a man-eater that could potentially kill those they once loved. Obviously, I wouldn't want to become a demon either. But as much as I hate to admit it, I know that at the point where I was when I first saw the film, there was no way I would be able to resist the compulsion to survive that would wash over me. Death is just that overwhelming and horrifying. It breaks you. It makes you so incredibly vulnerable. And that is why Kyojiro means so much to me. Even after having a moment of hesitation, he has the strength and courage to not only refuse, but to also keep on fighting. He could have taken an easier way out, allowing Akaza to kill him, or even slicing his own throat to escape the pain and terror. But instead, he chooses to prolong and intensify it. The mere act of tensing the muscles in his abdomen would be painful enough. To then have someone with this much power pulling against the wound over and over? I can't even begin to imagine how awful it must be. And yet, Kyojiro doesn't relent. His acceptance of death is one thing, but his ability to stare it in the face, to prolong his time with it so that he may live for as long as he can to do as much good as he can, is what shakes my very soul. There is no ignorance to mask the reality, no medicine to numb the pain, yet he continues to rage on. He can't afford to give in. He has to continue fighting, to protect and set an example for his fellow corps members, to be a symbol of strength to Senjuro, to keep the promise he made to his mother. No matter how hard Akaza pleads, he will never become a demon. Because Kyojiro Rengoku never, ever gives in! Let go!
Hino's get moved! If we don't help him now, it'll be too late!
Beast breathing! Bang one! Pierce!
Despite how hard he tries, Akaza can't pull his arms free. So instead, he pulls his arms off. And to give further praise to the score, the composers wrote the piece to have a bass drum hit the moment Akaza stomps. I love it when composers go that extra mile to help enhance a scene, even if most people are never going to notice it.
I've got to find sanctuary from the sunlight!
Tanjiro lets loose one final Hinokami Kagura.
That took too long! I've got to get away from the sun!
The attack was never going to be able to kill Akaza.
Don't run away! I'm not done with you, coward! Turn and face me!
He just wanted to make sure he heard everything he had to say.
I'm not running away from you! I'm running from the sun! And besides, this battle's already been decided!
Don't forget that the Demon Slayer Corps is always fighting you demons in the dead of night, where you have the advantage! We're not like you at all! We don't regenerate as fast, and when we lose a limb, it's gone for good! Don't run away, you bastard! You're a coward! A coward! Mr. Rengoku is stronger than you'll ever hope to be! Much stronger! You didn't win against him! He kept everyone safe! He fought to the very end, so no one would die! You're the one who lost! Rengoku is the true victor!
Zach Aguilar, you're a truly phenomenal actor.
Don't work yourself up like that. You would reopen your wound, and that would be very bad. You dying, my young Commodore, would truly spell my defeat.
The only reason Kyojuro has stayed alive during all of this is because of Akaza's arm stopping the bleeding. Once the sunlight touches it, it'll disintegrate, and the time he'll have left will quickly dwindle to just a few short minutes. The sun, normally a symbol of hope and peace in this show, even serving that role just a minute before, has now become a harbinger for the Flame Hashira's death.
Come here, lad. Let us speak one last time.
With an exceptionally beautiful skyscape hanging overhead, Kyojuro's crow arrives to hear his final words.
When I was dreaming of the past, there was something I remembered. My old residence. You should go pay it a visit. There are notes left by the previous Flame Hashira there. I recall my father used to read them often, but I'm afraid I don't know their contents myself. Within those notes, you may find the dance you mentioned. The Hinokami Kagura.
Even as he sits there dying, he continues to play the role of a Hashira, making sure he can at least give Tanjiro some guidance before he goes.
Please, Mr. Rengoku, enough of that. Just think about yourself now. Can you heal up with a breathing technique?
No. Very soon, I'll be dead. Before that happens, I need you to hear me out. I have a younger brother named Senjuro. Please tell him to follow his heart and walk down the path he feels is right.
All of his last words are for the sake of others, and not himself.
And tell my father that I want him to look after himself.
He doesn't even hold a grudge toward his father.
And lastly, about your sister. Know that I believe in her. I accept her as part of our ranks.
You can tell just how much those words mean to him. After being rejected by nearly every Hashira in the Corps, to have one grow to accept both him and his sister must feel incredibly heartwarming and validating.
If you are feeling disheartened, that you are somehow not enough, set your heart ablaze. Dry your eyes and look ahead. You may feel like digging your heels in, but the flow of time waits for no one. It won't patiently stand by as you grieve.
Mark Whitten's performance really sells this whole scene. The longer it goes on, you can hear his voice become breathier and shakier as Kyojuro struggles to hold on for as long as he can.
Don't feel bad that I'm going to die. As a Hashira, it's natural I'd protect you all. The young buds must be allowed to bloom. Any other Hashira would have done the same as I.
And eventually, it becomes raspy.
Young Kamado, young boar, boy of yellow, you must continue to grow. And eventually, You will lend your aid by becoming the next Hashira. I believe in each and every one of you.
By this point, my heart is shattered. And before I can start to pick up the pieces, they are swiftly crushed to dust.
Mother. Did I do well? The responsibility I took upon myself to fulfill. Was I successful?
For the first time, Kyojuro stops playing the role of a Hashira. In this moment, he's just a boy, looking for his mother's love and approval.
I'm so proud of you, my son.
When the train went off the rails, Mr. Rengoku used a bunch of his techniques. That must be how we somehow avoided suffering any casualties. It must be. I can't believe he's gone. Was it really an upper-ranked demon? Yeah. Why would something like that come here? Something that strong? I don't get it. I'm so frustrated. As soon as I manage to break through one wall, it feels like I just hit an even higher, thicker wall. And all the while, I can hear the sounds of my heroes fighting just beyond it. But I can't make it over to join them. If I'm still here fumbling around in the dark, how can I ever? Is becoming someone like him even possible for me?
Tanjiro's vulnerability and doubt reflected my own. Despite having seen countless shows before and knowing that, as the hero, he must succeed in the end, it still felt hopeless. Akaza was only upper 3, and without even giving it his all, he managed to defeat one of the strongest demon slayers in the core. There are still 3 demons stronger than him. Winning seems like an impossibility.
Stop blubbering like a little baby! This can't die or can't die talk is really pissing me off! He already said he believes in you, so you just have to worry about how to get there! All living things just go back to the earth when they die! Feeling sorry for yourself isn't gonna change that! Remember what Bug-Eye said to you! No matter how pathetic or humiliated you feel, you just gotta keep on living!
It was quite unexpected to receive such a motivating speech from Inosuke, but it's certainly welcome.
When you're crying too, I can see all the tears coming out of that headpiece of yours.
I am not crying!
And of course, he helps to provide a bit of levity in this depressing moment. But it doesn't last for long. After witnessing the death of his companion of so many years, Kyojiro's crow flies off to deliver the somber news as the theme of the Demon Slayer core transforms into a funeral march.
Mr. Rengoku has...
Seeing all the lives Kyojiro touched, It's clear his influence will continue to be felt for years to come. His parents' wish for his longevity will be fulfilled, but not in the way they wanted.
An upper-rank demon. Even Rengoku couldn't kill it.
I won't believe it.
The fact that some of them are so surprised by the news furthers the idea that Kyojuro may very well have been the strongest member in the Corps, making Akaza scarier and the chances of victory even bleaker.
Namu Amida Butsu.
Those repulsive demons. I'll exterminate them all.
Is that so? Not even a single one of those 200 passengers lost their lives? He did a splendid job indeed. A remarkable child. I feel no sadness. My life will soon reach its end as well. And then, I'll be able to see Kyojuro and the others again in the world after.
It's incredibly touching to hear this perspective of it all, but his last words echo the foreboding event of his death from the start of the film. Finally, the chimes of Homura begin to ring.
Mr. Rengoku! Rengoku! Rengoku!
I don't remember there being subtitles when watching in the theater, but just from the first two words, I knew fairly well what the song was about. It's a song of mourning. Specifically, I feel like the words are coming from Tanjiro as he laments all that happened and what could have been. The art of Kyojuro that starts to appear, combined with Homura's tone and lyrics, make the credits feel like a funeral. It gives the audience another chance to grieve and a final chance to say farewell. It's so simple, but the execution makes this one of my favorite credit sequences in any film. Once he's done mourning, Tanjiro's words shift at the end, declaring his determination to push on, leaving the end of the film with a small tinge of hope. This film is phenomenal. The acting, art, animation, music, and sound design all come together to weave a beautiful and heart-wrenching tale of confronting death, serving as a source of hope for many, myself included. Beyond that, it significantly elevated the quality of Demon Slayer's story. The upper-ranked demons have been set up as these truly unbelievable monsters that will take an immense amount of effort to overcome, creating a sense of dread I haven't felt in a piece of media for a long time. This film made me a true fan, and I began to eagerly await the next chapter in the story. Something that really surprised me was the fact that I don't feel any hatred towards Akaza, despite what he did. A part of that is because Kyojuro's death, though incredibly sad, was the best narrative choice to make, as it elevated the stakes going forward. Another part is that Akaza didn't kill him out of malice. The entire time, he was trying to avoid killing him. In his own twisted way, he did care for him. The last reason is that, at least in some ways, I can actually relate to him. His obsession with living forever clearly shows that he too has faced death, and it must have been quite terrible considering how strongly he speaks about his philosophy. Earlier, I said that the person who I was in that theater 2 years ago wouldn't have the strength to reject Akaza's offer. As time has passed, the memory of that moment in the ER has begun to fade, so I've been uncertain on whether I've truly been gaining more courage, or if I'm just forgetting the full magnitude of it. After opening myself up and facing these memories head on, I'm confident that I could now say no. However, I also know that I'm still not brave enough to face death head on. As much as I would want to, there's no way I'd have the courage and strength to swing my sword down upon Akaza's neck. I just end up letting him kill me to get it all over with. There's quite a journey still ahead of me. I'd love nothing more than to just leave it be, but even after all these years, the pain and memories still rear their heads on an almost daily basis. Given Akaza's obsession with death, I imagine these themes will be coming back in great force once Tanjiro has to face him. I wonder where I'll be by then, how much I'll have grown, and what lessons and internal reflections that arc will bring about. It's clear that Muzan shares the obsession for immortality, meaning the end of this series is going to be heavy with these themes as well. It's impossible to tell how my journey with death will progress, but this show will definitely continue to challenge me and give me hope. I think the Lord guided me to it for that very reason. Before I go, I have a piece of advice I'd like to leave you with. If you are ever feeling overwhelmed, that your pain is too great, and that the weight of your struggles is too much to bear, set your heart ablaze.